Don't let the giftings that God placed on you as a parent die without passing those things on to your kids. Those are important. God desires we preserve a legacy in our children by passing on what we have to them. Yes. On a different note, we see here's the children of Israel. They're in Egypt. They're in a time of prosperity when everyone else is in famine. But the problem is the prophecy said that in the midst of their provision, there would come a 400-year period of time where they would be so afflicted and so bound, but they would come out with great substance. Now, this is where the story gets interesting. Exodus chapter 1, verse 6. And Joseph died, and all of his brethren, and all that generation. 7. And the children of Israel were fruitful and increased abundantly and multiplied and waxed exceedingly mighty, and the land was filled with them. Now there arose up a new king over Egypt, which knew not Joseph. And he said unto his people, Behold, the people of the children of Israel are more and mightier than we. Come on, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply. And it come to pass that when there falleth out any war, they join unto our enemies and fight against us. So get them up out of the land. Now there's something that's interesting that's happened. They've been in a place of provision, but that place was not where God called them to stay. It was simply a place to sustain them until they could get developed and grow and mature to get to the next level where God could say, let's take a next step. Because guess what? Not everything God brings in your life is meant forever. Come on. I'm going to let that sink in just a second. Not everything God gives you is meant forever. And we have a problem with that because many times we think how God does something is how He's always going to do it. Where you at? Right there. He was speaking my message this morning. It amazes me how people will hold on to people and stages of life and things for so long till it gets to the place that God has to break their grip off of them and He has to allow things to come in their life to upset them and stir them up to get them seeking Him again. I've never believed that God causes trouble, but I will forever believe that God will use any trouble to get me to the place where I need to go. And if you've got a problem with that, you keep living. I promise you'll find that it's true. We see that the problem was with the children of Israel, they were in a place, and when they came to this place, they were a family of 70 individuals. By this scripture, Joseph has died, and all of his family have died. A new Pharaoh comes to town and is intimidated because here's the children of Israel, and they weren't poor, but they were rich because they were in provision. They were in a place of prosperity. If we read on, it says they were waxing strong at 1.5 million people. And the Pharaoh of the time was intimidated because he said, there's so many of them and they're so blessed, I don't know what to do. We should enslave them so that they don't join up with our enemies and overtake us. And the problem was, in the midst of the blessing, God was speaking and said, I've got a land flowing with milk and honey. I've got a place of permanent provision for you. But the problem was, they got so comfortable in the times of Egypt where they sat there for so long and they were prosperous. They didn't multiply, but they sat there for too long. So God had to send somebody to say, wake up and smell the coffee. I've got something greater for you. This is only temporary. You've got to get up. So He allowed Pharaoh to enslave them and put them into bondage. And it causes me to replay my life back in my mind. For every time that I had the blessing and I lost it, I understand why I lost it, because I stayed there too long. You know, people will buy a car and hold on to it forever, to the point that it's held together with bumper stickers. And here they come putting down. They can't even get good gas mileage because there's holes in the tank and there's rust spots. The whole car has leprosy. And there's nothing wrong with that. If that's what you like. There's nothing wrong with that. And don't miss what I'm about to say. But there was a time in the life of the car where if you traded it, you could get some value out of it. But if you hold on to it for too long, you ain't going to get $5 for it. And then when it breaks down, here you don't have anything to show for what you had. Are you with me? At the same time, you can hold on to a stage of life for so long that if you don't transition, you'll miss the moment where it's most valuable. And that's why many times we end up in places like we are today because we miss the moment. And because we miss the moment, we have no value and we've got to start over and begin building back up from the ground up. I don't know about you, but I want to be able to transition and move with the pace of God, because I realize that He didn't call me to have to be broke down and busted and messed up all the time, but He's called me to simply go like these steps are from one level to the other. together. But the problem is, if we can't let go of our methods, if we can't let go of our mindsets, if we can't let go of our way that we've always done things, we're going to miss our moment, find ourselves enslaved, non-productive, working for somebody else, and in the midst of it, God's going to give us a call saying, I've got something better for you, and we'll be frustrated and embittered and messed up. Why? Because our inside is screaming greatness, and our outside is keeping us in. And the children of Israel at this place. And because of the birthing of Moses' ministry, they came out. I'm thankful that they came out. It's a blessing that they came out. But how many things in your life have you held on to for so long that the provision that was once there is no longer there, and you question and say, God, where are you? And it's not that he's left you, but God is a moving God. He doesn't take time to sit down for anybody. I don't care who you are. I don't care how special you are or the family you get. God will not wait on anybody. He continually moves. And the challenge is, can we keep up with him? I preached a message one time called Daddy Long Legs, because the challenge is, can you keep up with the steps that Daddy takes? He's got long legs. He moves quickly. He can take a step sideways and you keep going forward. And because you don't realize he took a step sideways, you're going in an entirely different direction. And it's not that God's trying to confuse us, but he's trying to get us to point number 2, daily provision. Somebody say daily provision. Daily provision. Exodus chapter 16, verse 9. And Moses spake unto Aaron, saying to the congregation of the children of Israel, come near before the Lord, for he hath heard your murmurings. God at this point has brought the children of Israel out. He's delivered them. He closed the Red Sea behind them, conquered Pharaoh's army. And here is the children of Israel walking through the wilderness on what should have been a 4-day journey to the promised land. They get caught up in the mess and they begin to complain. And God intervenes here in Exodus chapter 16 and 9 and says, I hear your complaints. I hear what you're saying. And if we had time to hear what they were saying, there's some powerful things in it, but let me sum it up. They were complaining because they said, here we are in the wilderness, and we're longing for the leeks and the onions of Egypt. In other words, God, things are not easy for us, and we've built our appetite around something you're no longer doing. And this is going to be tough, but can you swallow it? If you can't, raise your hand. We got great ushers. They'll bring some water around for you. Make it easy for you because we love you like that. But I refuse to allow you to stay in a state in the wilderness saying, God, where are you? That is crazy thinking. That's right. In reality, you're pointing your finger to God and you got 3 more pointing back at you. Because the entire issue was, God said, I hear you're complaining, but you're longing for me to provide for you in a way I'm no longer working in. Okay, let's just make it real today. You're asking me to speak to you through a minister that no longer has a word for you. Yes. You're asking me to cause my presence to fall in your life through a song I'm no longer using. Yet we want to stand up and preach the same messages and have the same songs and expect God to move in the same way. He says, I'm not doing it. He says, I refuse to do it. Why? This is why God refuses to do it. Because if you're not careful, you'll get hooked on the way God blesses you. Yes. You'll get hooked on the way he talks to you and speaks to you. And you'll get so hooked on that you'll think it's the song or the speaker or the method and not who's doing it. Amen. Where's all the mothers? That's right. I'm excited because my wife and I are expecting. I don't know if you guys know that, but we're having our first baby. I'm excited about that. Yeah, you guys can clap for me. I'm excited about it. I've been doing all kinds of research and all kinds of kids. I just like to know things. We were in the doctor's office. I had our first appointment, and I was flipping through this magazines of different things as my wife was doing all her stuff, and I began to read about how you wean a baby. And to hear the testimonies of these mothers. Where's the mothers at? I know you guys. I mean, they were telling me some things, and I look forward to seeing it because I love my wife, and she's tough anyway. But how that you have to wean the baby, because if you don't wean the baby, it will never develop. And that its milk is only designed to take it so far. Yes. But through the process of weaning the baby will almost reach up out the blanket and cock you in the jaw. It will scream and cry. And it's proven many times the reason it screams and cries is because it believes the way it's getting fed is the only way it will ever get fed. Yes. Can somebody just let that sink into your life? Yes. At the same time, the milk was designed to get them to one point, But you've got to get them on solid foods before their teeth and their hair begin. The things have already developed, but they haven't grown and matured in the sense. So in other words, you've got to change the way they're being fed so that they can mature, grow up, and develop. And eventually, you can't feed them forever. You've got to teach them jokers how to feed themselves. And some parents in the house that's got some kids still living at home, you need to teach them how to feed themselves.